Portland police are facing some pushback after police officers had guarded dumpsters against a group of hungry people. So now this is food that had just been thrown away by a store. So let me give you some details, right? So I feel like there's a lot of nuance to this story. So now workers at the Hollywood West Fred Meyer had thrown away thousands of perishable items because the store, like a lot of others, had lost power in an outage brought on by the winter storm. So now, look, that's standard grocery store procedure. You lose power, you throw out the food, even if it's still good. If it's still good, doesn't matter. You throw it away, you write it off. Okay? And that's what they did. Now, as a result, you had images on social media of mountains of packaged meat, cheeses, and juice, as well as turkeys, racks of ribs, all of them that have been tossed in the dumpsters. So it's in the bin. So now after this happened, you had people out there in the community who had themselves lost power, lost a lot of their food. They were hoping to salvage some of it to hand it out to the community, as well as even consume it themselves. So now apparently the store owners, they weren't having it, and they ended up calling the police. So now within a few hours, people seeking food from the dumpsters began to report police officers showing up to guard the dumpsters to prevent people from taking any of these items. So now there were people on the ground that were talking about this. One of them was Morgan McNiff, who's a prominent activist in the area, lives in the neighborhood, and said employees were guarding the dumpsters when they showed up to get some of that discarded food. McNiff began to film the employees and reported staff members had threatened to call the police on them for doing so. The store manager called the police shortly thereafter, according to McNiff. Quote, after that, other people started showing up and asking them, why are you guys guarding a dumpster? McNiff also said that about 15 people eventually gathered in an attempt to collect food. At that point, a dozen officers arrived at the scene. One officer wasn't wearing a mask, so that's classy, until a supervisor arrived to bring him one. On Wednesday, Portland police officers said that they were sent to the scene after an employee said that they felt that the situation had escalated out of control and feared that there may have been a physical confrontation. Or, you could have moved out of the way and let people get the food. I mean, that could have happened. And look, here's the thing. There wasn't any violence. There wasn't an escalation. What any escalation there was as a result of the police presence. So now, the question that I think is on my mind, that when I was reading this story, that first came to mind is the food good? Well, on Wednesday, a Fred Meyer spokesman came out and said, nope, it's bad. It's bad. But first, they tried to cover themselves. So understand that I think this is coming from PR. This person said, the company donates more than 5 million pounds of food annually. So when you come out and you say, I do great, my store does great things. What are you talking about? That's a PR move. All right. So now here's what they said. Unfortunately, due to loss of power at the store, some perishable food was no longer safe for donation to local hunger relief agencies. Our store team became concerned that area residents would consume the food and risk foodborne illnesses. And they engaged local law enforcement out of an abundance of caution. We apologize for the confusion. So now a lot of you are asking, why don't you donate it to a food bank? Well, there is a reason for that. A lot of food banks will not take donated food in these kinds of situations. In fact, most, if not all, food banks don't actually accept perishable items. It's non-perishable only. And so that said, what happened is that was completely unacceptable was not only was the food still good, but also that they had called the police on these people to try to stop them from getting the food that was still good. So now, activist and researcher Juniper Simonis said officers showed up and threatened those on hand with arrest, at which point the crowd had moved across the street. The argument the cops used is, we're protecting you against bad food. Well, but you're doing it by threatening to arrest people. I don't know about that. I don't know. Okay, that doesn't seem to make sense to me. We're protecting you by threatening to throw you in prison. I mean, here's what Simona said in a statement. I'm just interacting with officers and trying to get their information, and then they say we're going to arrest you if you don't leave and threaten me with trespassing. I was there simply documenting the police, not what was in the dumpster. They said I wasn't going over there, and the police got the store manager to threaten me with trespassing. Police said they tried to explain to the group that the food was spoiled. This is no longer Simona's. No subject in the crowd was willing, this is according to a police spokesperson, was willing to have an open dialogue with the officers and continue to shout insults at them and store employees. Simonis did say the police eventually left, and those wanting to get food did end up getting some. They were able to go to the dumpsters. At the end of the day, people did take food back, which apparently, according to Simonis, was still in good condition because of the cold weather. So, all right, let me show you let me show you the food. Okay. I mean, that still looks fairly good to me. There's that. All right. So, and by the way, that's just a picture. There are other pictures that show what had happened. One person, by the way, had reported that they had picked up a carton of juice with the expiration of March. So what was wrong with the juice? It wasn't expired. It wasn't bad. You can put it in the fridge. What's going on? So what I'm seeing here is a bunch of food that can't be donated because food banks won't take it, or kept in the store because of store policy, but it's still technically good. So, but this food, even though it's still technically good, has been thrown away, and now they're making sure that it's spoiled by not allowing people to go and take it. The store already wrote this food off as a loss because of the situation with no power, but they would rather it go bad because, well, they would rather it go bad than allow people to take it. Now, of course, I understand, like, okay, if somebody gets sick, they could come back and sue. I get that. It's certainly possible. But again, I don't think that's likely to happen. People ended up getting the food anyway, so why call the police in the first place? You've thrown it out. Why make police have to guard food that can still be used and ensure that it ultimately goes bad when you just let hungry people take it? And that's it. Both McKinnon and Simona said the immediate action to prevent people from taking the discarded food speaks to the value the city places in providing aid to those who are in need. The people who were there weren't there for selfish reasons. They were there to get food to distribute to hungry people around the city. There are mutual aid groups that have been helping feed people at warming centers because the city doesn't have enough resources to feed them. McKinnon also said that many of the people police threatened with arrest and turned away were regular customers of the store. I live in this neighborhood. This neighborhood doesn't have power. And Fred Meyer's telling people in this immediate community who shop here that they can't have these things they're throwing away. Cheese, pickles, yogurt, things that are intentionally cured and cultured and cured. None of this makes sense to me except through the lens of severely ingrained policing and a culture of disrespect for human dignity. You know what I think it is. I mean, it's our society. It's not only our society, it's capitalism. Okay. I mean, when you feel like you need to guard your trash because you can't sell it or donate it, for a tax write-off, but if it's still good, but you feel like, no, I can't let poor hungry people have it for whatever reason, no reason, essentially. That's part of, I think that's societal. I mean, again, we're not talking about expired or rotten food. The food was safe and edible, just thrown away for company policy. And that's what it is. Why not give it away? Why not allow people to take it? I mean, maybe if it makes you feel better, have people sign a waiver if they get, if they claim to get sick. I mean, anything is better than calling the cops. you shouldn't call the cops. Simonis also tried to tie this into the Portland protests. They said, here it's not broken windows, it's tossed away but otherwise completely fine food. It's not a bad situation or vandalism, it's literally the exact opposite. Feeding hungry people. Yet they still use the same apparatus to prevent anything from being done. Honestly, look, this is our society. It is. We'd rather let food rot than poor hungry people get it outside of food banks. And look, it may be a simpler answer, but I do wonder why food banks don't accept perishables. It could be that they just don't have the storage spaces, don't have refrigerators, freezer cases, or anything like that to hold that. I can understand that, sure. But I don't think there's any real reason that they can't get those things. You know, it would, I mean, again, if you were motivated and you had the resources and backing, then you should absolutely be able to get these. It would cut down on food waste. It would cut down on hunger. And again, going to maybe the fact that there's a more social answer to that, maybe we as a society don't want poor people to have access to quality free food. Maybe it's just that we have a lack of a desire to allow people to get this. Only generic mac and cheese for you, powdered milk, peanut butter, saltines. If you want more, you got to go out and work, you lazy bums. I just think that we have an allocation problem in this country. All right. We let all the resources flow to the very, very top. All the resources, everything. And yet, at the same time, we have a food waste problem and hungry people in this country. This should not happen. This should not happen. And I understand food banks are doing the best with what they've got. I don't disparage them at all. I'm just saying that as a society, we should be putting far more effort into eradicating hunger, which we could do while also simultaneously cutting down on food waste. It's sort of a two birds with one stone situation. All right. It's just that we don't do that because we choose not to. And that is the big problem. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.